You know something? Right now, in this very moment, you have access to a power that can solve every single problem you're facing. Every single one. And I'm not talking about wishful thinking or positive affirmations or pretending everything is okay when it's not. I'm talking about something real, something profound, something that's been available to you since the day you were born, but maybe nobody ever told you how to use it. There's a spiritual solution to every problem. Not some problems, not most problems, every problem. And when I say spiritual, I'm not asking you to join a religion or sit in meditation for hours or give up your logical mind. I'm talking about recognizing that you are more than just your physical body, more than just your thoughts, more than just the collection of experiences that have shaped you up until now. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and when you tap into that spiritual nature, when you connect to that source of infinite intelligence that flows through everything and everyone, problems begin to dissolve. Think about the problems in your life right now. Maybe it's money troubles, maybe it's relationship issues, maybe it's health concerns or career frustrations or family conflicts. Whatever it is, you've probably been trying to solve it the same way you've always tried to solve problems. You've been using your thinking mind, analyzing, strategizing, worrying, planning, trying to control every variable and force outcomes to happen. And how's that working for you? If you're honest with yourself, you'll admit that the more you push, the more resistance you meet. The more you worry, the worse you feel. The harder you try to control everything, the more out of control your life becomes. That's because you've been trying to solve spiritual problems with material solutions. You've been trying to fix what's happening on the outside without addressing what's happening on the inside. And it doesn't work that way. It never has, and it never will. The outer world is always a reflection of the inner world. Always, without exception. If you want to change what's happening in your life, you have to change what's happening in your consciousness first. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, that sounds nice, but I have real problems. I have bills to pay. I have relationships that are falling apart. I have a body that's not working the way it should. How is spirituality going to fix that? And I understand that resistance because I've been there myself. I've had times in my life when everything seemed to be falling apart, when the problems felt so overwhelming that the idea of a spiritual solution seemed almost insulting, like telling someone who's drowning that they just need to think positive thoughts. But here's what I learned, and here's what I want you to understand. When I talk about a spiritual solution, I'm not talking about ignoring your problems or pretending they don't exist. I'm talking about approaching them from a completely different level of consciousness. Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. You have to rise above it. You have to access a higher level of awareness, a higher level of understanding, a higher level of being, and that higher level is your spiritual nature. It's the part of you that existed before you were born and will exist after you die. It's the part of you that is connected to everything and everyone. It's the part of you that knows, really knows, that you are not separate from the creative force of the universe. You are an expression of it. You are a piece of it. You are it, experiencing itself through your unique perspective. When you operate from that awareness, when you live from that knowing, problems don't have the same power over you anymore. They don't disappear instantly. Life doesn't become perfect. But your relationship to those problems changes completely. You stop being a victim. You stop feeling helpless. You stop thinking that your happiness depends on circumstances being a certain way. Instead, you become a creator. You become empowered. You recognize that you have the ability to respond to whatever life brings you from a place of peace, from a place of strength, from a place of love. Let me tell you about the difference between problem consciousness and solution consciousness. Problem consciousness is where most people live most of the time. It's a state of mind where you're focused on what's wrong, what's missing, what's not working. You wake up in the morning and immediately start thinking about your problems. You go through your day looking for evidence that your problems are real and valid and justified. You talk about your problems with other people. You replay them in your mind over and over. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You feel like a victim of circumstances. And here's the thing about problem consciousness. It attracts more problems. Like attracts like. What you focus on expands. You're constantly thinking about lack, you create more lack. If you're constantly thinking about conflict, you create more conflict. If you're constantly thinking about illness, you create more illness. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because that's how consciousness works. Your thoughts create your reality. Your beliefs shape your experience. Your dominant mental attitude determines what shows up in your life. Solution consciousness is completely different. It's a state of mind where you're focused on possibilities instead of limitations. You're focused on what you want instead of what you don't want. You're focused on faith instead of fear. You wake up in the morning and you connect to that spiritual source within you. You spend time in silence. You remind yourself of who you really are. You affirm your connection to infinite intelligence. You trust that everything is working out for your highest good, even when you can't see how. And from that place of connection, from that place of trust, from that place of inner peace, you take inspired action, not desperate action, not forced action, not action from a place of fear or lack or need, but action that feels right, action that flows naturally, action that comes from listening to your intuition, to that still small voice within you that always knows the right thing to do. That's the spiritual solution. It's not passive. It's not about sitting around waiting for God or the universe to fix your problems for you. It's about aligning yourself with the creative force of life and allowing that force to work through you. It's about getting your ego out of the way and letting your higher self guide you. It's about surrendering the need to control everything and trusting that there's a bigger intelligence at work, an intelligence that sees the whole picture when you can only see a tiny piece of it. Now, let me talk about surrender for a moment, because this is where a lot of people get confused. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean becoming passive or lazy or irresponsible. Surrender means releasing your attachment to how things have to unfold. It means doing your best and then trusting the outcome to something greater than your limited perspective. It means recognizing that you don't have all the answers, that you can't see all the possibilities, that your way might not be the best way even though your ego thinks it is. I remember a time in my own life when I was struggling with a major problem. Everything I tried wasn't working. Every door I knocked on seemed to be locked. Every solution I came up with led to another dead end. And I was frustrated, I was angry, I was starting to feel hopeless. But then something shifted inside me. I got quiet. I stopped trying so hard. I said, okay, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what to do. But I trust that there's a solution, and I'm open to receiving guidance. And you know what happened? Within days, completely out of nowhere, an opportunity appeared that I never could have planned for or anticipated. Someone contacted me who I hadn't spoken to in years. A situation resolved itself without my intervention. Resources showed up that I didn't know existed. And I realized that all my struggling and striving and trying to force things to happen had actually been blocking the solution. The moment I got out of the way, the moment I surrendered my need to control, the solution appeared. That's how it works. That's the spiritual solution. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's alignment. It's allowing. It's trusting that you live in an intelligent universe that is always working in your favor, even when it doesn't look like it, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. And here's another crucial piece of this: forgiveness. If you want to experience spiritual solutions to your problems, you have to be willing to forgive. You have to forgive everyone who you think has wronged you. You have to forgive yourself for all the mistakes you think you've made. You have to forgive life for not turning out the way you thought it should. Because as long as you're holding on to resentment, as long as you're holding on to anger, as long as you're holding on to blame, you're blocking the flow of spiritual energy through your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning bad behavior. It doesn't mean allowing people to mistreat you. It doesn't mean pretending that hurtful things didn't happen. Forgiveness means releasing the emotional charge around those experiences. It means choosing peace over being right. It means recognizing that holding on to anger and resentment hurts you far more than it hurts anyone else. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When you forgive, you free yourself. You open up space for miracles to occur. You allow love to flow through you again. And love is the ultimate spiritual solution, because love is what you are at your core. Beneath all the fear, beneath all the pain, beneath all the conditioning and programming and beliefs that you've picked up along the way, there is love. Pure, unconditional, infinite love. That's your true nature. That's who you really are. And when you operate from that place of love, when you make decisions from that place, when you respond to life from that place, everything changes. Your problems don't necessarily disappear overnight, but your experience of them transforms. You stop resisting what is. You stop fighting against reality. You stop making yourself miserable by insisting that things should be different than they are. Instead, you accept what is, and from that place of acceptance, you ask, what's the highest response I can make to this situation? What would love do here? How can I grow from this experience? See, every problem is an opportunity for spiritual growth. Every challenge is an invitation to expand your consciousness. Every difficulty is a chance to discover more of who you really are. When you understand that, when you really get that at a cellular level, you stop seeing yourself as a victim and you start seeing yourself as a student. Life becomes your teacher. Every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, becomes a lesson that's designed to help you evolve, to help you remember your true nature, to help you become more of who you came here to be. And let me tell you something else that's really important. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to know the exact steps to take or the precise path to follow. All you have to do is take the next step, just the next step. And when you take that step from a place of spiritual alignment, from a place of inner guidance, from a place of trust, the next step after that will reveal itself. And then the next one, and the next one. That's how spiritual solutions work. They unfold. They reveal themselves. They emerge from the silence, from the stillness, from the space between your thoughts. That's why meditation is so powerful. That's why prayer is so effective. That's why spending time in nature or listening to music or doing anything that quiets your busy mind and connects you to something greater than yourself is so valuable. Because in those moments of connection, you receive guidance, you receive inspiration, you receive the next piece of the puzzle. But you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to trust. You have to be willing to act on the guidance you receive, even when it doesn't make logical sense, even when your rational mind is screaming at you that it's crazy, because spiritual guidance often doesn't make sense to the logical mind. It comes from a different level of intelligence, a level that sees possibilities that your limited human perspective can't see. I want to talk about gratitude now, because gratitude is one of the most powerful spiritual practices you can engage in. When you're grateful, when you're genuinely appreciative for what you have right now in this moment, you automatically raise your vibration. You automatically shift out of problem consciousness and into solution consciousness. You automatically align yourself with the creative force of the universe. And I'm not talking about fake gratitude or forced gratitude or pretending to be thankful when you're really not. I'm talking about authentic appreciation for the good that already exists in your life. Because no matter how bad things seem, there's always something to be grateful for. You're alive, you're breathing, you can see, you can hear. You have access to clean water. You have food to eat. You have a roof over your head. These are miracles. We take them for granted because we have them, but they're miracles nonetheless. And when you start your day with gratitude, when you end your day with gratitude, when you practice gratitude throughout your day, you train your mind to look for what's right instead of what's wrong. You train your consciousness to focus on abundance instead of lack. You train your spirit to recognize the blessings that surround you at all times. And what happens? More blessings show up, more good things appear, more solutions present themselves. Because like attracts like. What you appreciate, appreciates. Now, I want to address the question of why bad things happen to good people. Why do innocent children suffer? Why do terrible tragedies occur? Why does life seem so unfair sometimes? And I'm not going to give you some simplistic answer or some religious platitude that doesn't really satisfy the question. The truth is, I don't know why these things happen. I don't understand all the mysteries of the universe. I don't have all the answers. But what I do know is this. We live in a world of duality. We live in a world where there's light and dark, pleasure and pain, birth and death. That's the nature of physical reality. And from a spiritual perspective, from a higher level of consciousness, all of these experiences are opportunities for growth, for learning, for evolution. Not because God is punishing us or testing us, but because contrast is how we expand. Challenges are how we discover our strength. Difficulties are how we develop compassion and wisdom and resilience. That doesn't make the pain less real. It doesn't make the suffering less valid. But it does give it meaning. It does give it purpose. And when you can find meaning in your suffering, when you can find purpose in your pain, when you can ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? How am I being called to grow? Who am I becoming through this challenge? Then you transform that suffering into something sacred. You alchemize that pain into wisdom. You turn that problem into a portal for spiritual awakening. And that's the ultimate spiritual solution. Not the elimination of all problems, but the transformation of your relationship to those problems. Not the absence of challenges, but the development of the consciousness that can meet those challenges with grace and strength and love. Not a life where everything goes your way, but a life where you trust that everything is guiding you toward your highest good, even the things that hurt, even the things that don't make sense. Let me share something with you that might change how you see your problems. Every problem you're facing right now exists because you're ready to solve it. You're ready to grow beyond it. You're ready to evolve into the version of yourself that doesn't have that problem anymore. Life doesn't give you challenges you can't handle. The universe doesn't test you beyond your capacity. Everything you're experiencing right now is precisely what you need to experience to become who you're meant to be. Think about that for a moment. Your financial problems are teaching you something about abundance and trust. Your relationship problems are teaching you something about love and communication and boundaries. Your health problems are teaching you something about self-care and listening to your body and honoring your needs. Your career problems are teaching you something about purpose and passion and following your heart. Nothing is random, nothing is meaningless, everything is part of your spiritual curriculum. And when you approach your problems from that perspective, when you see them as assignments rather than punishments, when you see them as opportunities rather than obstacles, everything shifts. You stop feeling like a victim. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, what is this trying to show me? What am I meant to learn? How can I use this experience to become stronger, wiser, more loving? That's personal responsibility at the spiritual level. That's owning your power. That's recognizing that you are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are a creator. You are a chooser. You are a powerful spiritual being with the ability to shape your experience through the quality of your consciousness. And your consciousness is shaped by your beliefs. So if you want different results in your life, if you want to experience spiritual solutions to your problems, you have to examine your beliefs. You have to become aware of the thoughts you're thinking, the stories you're telling yourself, the programs that are running in the background of your mind. Because most of your beliefs aren't even yours. They were given to you by your parents, your teachers, your culture, your religion, your society, and many of them are limiting you. Many of them are keeping you stuck. Many of them are creating the very problems you're trying to solve. So question everything. Don't accept any belief just because someone told you it was true. Don't accept any limitation just because you've always experienced it. Don't accept any story about who you are or what you're capable of just because it's familiar. Test your beliefs. Challenge them. Ask yourself, is this really true? Is this serving me? Is this helping me create the life I want to live? And when you discover a belief that's limiting you, replace it. Choose a new belief. Choose a belief that empowers you, that expands you, that aligns with your highest vision for your life. Because you can do that. You have that power. Your beliefs are not fixed. Your identity is not fixed. Your destiny is not fixed. You are a work in progress. You are always becoming, and you get to decide who you're becoming. That's the beauty of being human. That's the gift of having consciousness. You have choice. You have free will. You have the ability to direct your attention, to choose your thoughts, to cultivate your inner state. And when you use that ability wisely, when you use it consciously, when you use it in alignment with your spiritual nature, miracles happen, solutions appear, problems dissolve, life flows. And flow is the natural state of the universe. Everything in nature flows. Rivers flow, seasons flow, breath flows, life flows. It's only the human mind that resists, that clings, that tries to hold on to what's passing away or force what's not ready to arrive. But when you learn to flow with life instead of fighting against it, when you learn to surrender to the current instead of swimming upstream, everything becomes easier, everything becomes more graceful, everything becomes more joyful. That doesn't mean you become passive. Flow is not passivity. Flow is alignment. It's taking inspired action. It's doing what needs to be done without resistance, without resentment, without making it harder than it needs to be. It's showing up fully for whatever life is asking of you in this moment without dragging the past into it or projecting the future onto it. It's being here now, present, aware, responsive, alive. And when you live like that, when you bring that quality of presence to everything you do, problems lose their grip on you. Because most problems exist in time, they exist in the past, where you're still holding on to hurt or regret. Or they exist in the future, where you're worried about what might happen or afraid that things won't work out. But in the present moment, right here, right now, there is no problem. There's just what is. There's just this breath, this heartbeat, this moment of being alive. Can you feel that? Can you sense that right now, in this very moment, you're okay? You might have challenges, you might have concerns, you might have situations that need to be addressed. But right here, right now, you're breathing, you're alive, you're aware. And that awareness, that consciousness, that presence, that's your true nature. That's who you really are. That's the spiritual essence that can never be diminished, never be destroyed, never be taken away from you. And when you rest in that awareness, when you abide in that presence, when you identify with that spiritual essence, rather than with your problems, you discover a peace that passes all understanding. You discover a joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. You discover a strength that comes from something far greater than your individual will. You discover that you are supported, you are guided, you are loved beyond measure. That's not just a nice idea. That's not just positive thinking. That's truth. That's reality. That's the way the universe actually works. You are not separate from the source of all life. You are an expression of it. You are a manifestation of it. You are it, knowing itself through your unique experience. And when you realize that, when you truly know that in the core of your being, everything changes. Your problems don't define you anymore. Your circumstances don't limit you anymore. Your past doesn't control you anymore. You are free. Free to create, free to choose, free to become. Free to live from your highest vision of who you are. And that's the ultimate spiritual solution, not solving all your problems, but transcending the consciousness that created them in the first place. So how do you do that? How do you shift from problem consciousness to solution consciousness? How do you move from fear to faith, from lack to abundance, from separation to connection? It's simpler than you think. It's not about doing more. It's about being more. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about remembering who you really are. Start each day in silence. Before you check your phone, before you turn on the news, before you jump into your to-do list, spend time connecting to your spiritual source. It doesn't have to be long. Even 5 minutes of quiet reflection, of conscious breathing, of feeling your connection to something greater than yourself can shift your entire day. In that silence, you remember. You remember that you're not alone. You remember that you're guided. You remember that you're loved. Throughout your day, pause. Take conscious breaths. Check in with yourself. Ask, am I operating from fear or faith right now? Am I coming from my ego or my higher self? Am I trying to control or am I trusting? And when you notice that you've slipped into problem consciousness, when you catch yourself worrying or complaining or feeling like a victim, gently redirect your attention. Choose a different thought. Choose a better feeling. Choose to trust. And at the end of each day, reflect. Look for the lessons. Look for the blessings. Look for the ways that life was supporting you, even in the challenges, even in the difficulties. Write down what you're grateful for. Write down what you learned. Write down how you grew, because growth is the goal. Evolution is the purpose. Becoming more conscious, more loving, more aligned with your true nature, that's why you're here. And when you live like that, when you make spirituality a daily practice rather than an occasional experience, when you make conscious connection to your source a priority rather than an afterthought, your life transforms. Not overnight, not without challenges, but steadily, surely, powerfully. Problems that used to consume you lose their power. Situations that used to stress you out become manageable. People who used to trigger you no longer affect you in the same way. Why? Because you've changed. Your consciousness has shifted. Your identity has expanded. You're no longer operating from the limited perspective of the ego. You're operating from the unlimited perspective of the spirit. And from that place, anything is possible. From that place, miracles are natural. From that place, solutions appear that you never could have thought of with your rational mind. I want you to know that no matter what you're going through right now, no matter how difficult things seem, no matter how hopeless you might feel, there is a way through. There is a solution. There is hope. But you have to look for it in the right place. You have to look for it within. You have to look for it in your connection to something greater than yourself. You have to look for it in your spiritual nature. The answers you're seeking aren't in the outside world. They're not in another person or a different job or a bigger bank account or a better body. Those things might be part of the solution, but they're not the source of the solution. The source is within you. It's always been within you. It always will be within you. You just have to learn to access it. You just have to learn to trust it. You just have to learn to live from it. And when you do, when you make that shift from outer dependence to inner guidance, from material solutions to spiritual solutions, from ego consciousness to soul consciousness, your entire experience of life transforms. You stop feeling like you're fighting an uphill battle. You stop feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. You stop feeling separate and alone. Instead, you feel supported, you feel guided, you feel connected to a power and an intelligence that is always working for your highest good. That power is real. That intelligence is real. That support is real. It's not something you have to earn. It's not something you have to be good enough for. It's not something that's available to some people but not to others. It's your birthright. It's who you are. It's your nature. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and when you live from that truth, when you operate from that understanding, when you make decisions from that awareness, life works. Not perfectly, not without challenges, not without growth opportunities, but it works in a way that feels right, in a way that feels aligned, in a way that feels meaningful. And that's what we're all really looking for, isn't it? Not a life without problems, but a life that means something, a life that matters, a life that's connected to something greater than our individual concerns. You can have that life, you can live that way, you can experience that connection. Starting right now, not tomorrow, not when your problems are solved, not when your circumstances change, right now, in this moment, by choosing to remember who you really are, by choosing to connect to your spiritual source, by choosing to trust that there is a solution, even when you can't see it yet. That's faith, real faith. Not blind faith, not naive faith, but faith that's grounded in the understanding that you live in an intelligent, responsive, loving universe. Faith that's based on the recognition that you are part of that intelligence, that responsiveness, that love. Faith that comes from knowing, really knowing, that you are never alone, never abandoned, never without support. And when you live from that faith, when you let that faith guide your choices, when you allow that faith to shape your experience, problems become less problematic. Challenges become less challenging. Difficulties become less difficult. Not because they disappear, but because you've changed how you relate to them. You've changed the consciousness you bring to them. You've changed who you are in the face of them. And that changes everything. Because you are not your problems. You are not your circumstances. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your limitations. You are a spiritual being of infinite worth and infinite potential and infinite capacity for growth and healing and transformation. That's who you really are. That's what you really are. And when you remember that, when you live from that, when you express that in everything you do, you become unstoppable. Not because you never face obstacles, but because obstacles can't stop you anymore. They can't define you. They can't diminish you. They can only strengthen you, teach you, help you grow into more of who you're meant to be. And that's the gift of problems. That's the purpose of challenges. That's why spiritual solutions are always available, because every problem is actually an opportunity in disguise. An opportunity to trust more, an opportunity to love more, an opportunity to grow more, an opportunity to remember more of who you really are. And when you seize that opportunity, when you say yes to the lesson, when you choose growth over comfort and expansion over safety and faith over fear, you tap into a power that's always been within you, waiting to be claimed. Claim it now, right here, right now, not by doing anything, but by being, by recognizing, by remembering. You are not separate from the source of all solutions. You are connected to it. You are part of it. You are it. And when you know that, when you really know that, not just intellectually, but in your bones, in your heart, in your soul, everything becomes possible. Every problem has a spiritual solution. Every single one. And that solution is always available to you, always accessible, always ready to reveal itself when you're ready to receive it. So be ready, be open, be willing, be trusting, be patient, be present, be you, your true you, your spiritual you, your unlimited you. That's the you that came here to live fully, to love completely, to grow endlessly, to contribute uniquely, to shine brightly. That's the you that knows there's a way through every difficulty, a lesson in every challenge, a blessing in every burden. That's the you that's connected to infinite intelligence, infinite creativity, infinite possibilities. Live from that place, operate from that consciousness, trust that guidance, follow that wisdom, and watch as your problems transform, as solutions appear, as your life becomes a reflection of the truth that's always been within you. You are a spiritual being, and there is a spiritual solution to every problem you will ever face. You know what changes everything? The moment you stop waiting for permission. The moment you stop looking around for someone to validate your dreams, to tell you it's okay to move forward, to give you that green light you think you need. That moment when you realize that the person you've been waiting for is you, that's when your life transforms completely. Look, I want to talk to you today about something that matters tremendously. It's about moving forward when you feel alone. It's about getting ahead when the support you hope for simply isn't there. And I'm going to tell you something right now that might sting a little bit, but it's also going to set you free. You don't need anyone else to make your life work. You don't need their approval, their encouragement, or their belief in you. What you need is already inside you, and it has been there all along. So many people spend their entire lives waiting. They wait for their parents to understand them. They wait for their spouse to support their vision. They wait for their friends to cheer them on. They wait for the right circumstances, the right economy, the right moment when everything lines up perfectly. And while they're waiting, life is passing them by. Years go by, and they're still in the same place, still hoping that someone will show up and make it easier. But here's what I've learned, and what I want you to understand right down to your bones. The universe doesn't reward waiting, it rewards action. It rewards people who move despite their fear, who act despite their doubt, who keep going even when everyone around them says it can't be done. The universe responds to your energy, your intention, your willingness to say yes to yourself, even when everyone else is saying no. You see, when you came into this world, you came in with everything you needed. You didn't arrive here broken or incomplete. You arrived here whole, with infinite potential, with a purpose that only you can fulfill. But somewhere along the way, we get programmed. We get taught that we need others to complete us, that we need external validation to know we're on the right path, that we need the crowd to applaud before we can feel good about ourselves. And that programming is what keeps most people stuck their entire lives. Think about it for a moment. Think about all the great achievements in human history, all the breakthroughs, all the innovations, all the art and music and literature that has touched millions of lives. Almost every single one of those things came from someone who was willing to stand alone, someone who was willing to be misunderstood, someone who kept going when everyone else thought they were crazy. The Wright brothers were laughed at. Edison was called a fool. Every person who has ever done anything significant has had to face the naysayers, the doubters, the people who couldn't see what they could see. And the only difference between those who made it and those who didn't was that the ones who made it refused to let other people's opinions become their reality. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be saying, but it's hard to do it alone. It's hard when your family doesn't support you. It's hard when your friends don't understand. It's hard when you're the only one who believes in what you're doing. And you're absolutely right. It is hard. But you know what's harder? Living a life of regret, dying with your music still inside you, reaching the end of your days and wondering what might have been if you had just been brave enough to try. The truth is, being alone in your pursuit is actually a gift. It's a gift because it forces you to develop inner strength. It forces you to cultivate self-reliance. It forces you to connect with that higher part of yourself, that infinite intelligence that's always there, always guiding you, always supporting you, even when no human being is. When you have no one else to lean on, you learn to lean on something far more powerful. You learn to lean on the universal force that creates worlds, that turns acorns into oak trees, that guides salmon upstream and birds south for the winter. That same force is inside you, animating you, breathing you, living through you. And when you tap into that, when you align with that, you become unstoppable. Let me tell you something about how this works. Everything in this universe is energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your beliefs are energy. Your focus is energy. And energy attracts like energy. So when you're constantly looking outside yourself for support, when you're constantly focused on what's missing, when you're constantly telling yourself the story that you can't make it without others, you're sending out that energy of lack, of incompleteness, of dependency. And what does the universe send back to you? more situations that confirm that belief. But when you shift your focus, when you start seeing yourself as whole and complete exactly as you are, when you start acting from a place of inner certainty rather than outer validation, everything changes. You start attracting different circumstances. You start attracting different people. You start attracting opportunities that weren't there before, not because the world changed, but because you changed. You changed your energy, and the universe responded. This is not some mystical idea. This is how life works. This is physics. This is the law of attraction, the law of correspondence, the law of cause and effect. You are the cause, and your life is the effect. Always, no exceptions. The moment you truly get this, the moment you truly own this, you stop being a victim and you become a creator. Now, let's talk about what it means to get ahead when no one is there for you. First, you have to understand what getting ahead really means. Most people think getting ahead means accumulating more stuff, more money, more status, more recognition. And while there's nothing wrong with having those things, that's not what getting ahead is really about. Getting ahead is about growth. It's about becoming more of who you really are. It's about expressing your authentic self. It's about contributing something meaningful to the world. It's about living in alignment with your highest values and your deepest purpose. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need anyone's permission to do any of that. You don't need anyone's help to grow. You don't need anyone's approval to express yourself. You don't need anyone's support to live your purpose. You already have everything you need inside you right now. You have creativity, you have intelligence, you have intuition, you have determination, you have resilience, you have courage. Maybe you've forgotten about these gifts. Maybe they've been buried under years of conditioning and criticism and disappointment. But they're still there, and they're waiting for you to claim them. The first step to getting ahead alone is to make a decision. You have to decide right now in this moment that you're done waiting. You're done hoping someone will save you. You're done looking for external validation. You're done letting other people's opinions run your life. You're done playing small to make others comfortable. You decide that from this point forward, you're going to be the author of your own story, the captain of your own ship, the master of your own destiny. And when you make that decision, really make it, not just think about it, but commit to it with every fiber of your being. Something shifts in the universe. Doors start to open. Resources start to appear. Ideas start to flow. It's like you've been pushing against a locked door your whole life, and suddenly you realize the door was never locked at all. You were just pushing when you should have been pulling. The second step is to get clear on what you want. Not what your parents want for you, not what society says you should want, not what would make you look good on social media. What do you actually want? What makes your heart sing? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if no one was watching? What would you do if money was no object? You need to get honest about this because you can't hit a target you can't see. And so many people are aiming at targets that aren't even theirs. They're living someone else's dream, following someone else's path, trying to fit into someone else's idea of success, and then they wonder why they feel empty even when they achieve their goals. Your purpose is unique to you. Your path is unique to you. Your gifts are unique to you. There's something you came here to do that only you can do. And the moment you start honoring that, the moment you start moving in that direction, everything starts to align. But you have to be willing to tune out the noise and tune into your inner guidance. The third step is to take action. This is where most people get stuck. They have the decision, they have the clarity, but they wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect circumstances. And those perfect conditions never come, so they stay stuck in preparation mode, in planning mode, in I'll do it when mode. But action is what bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step, and then the next step will reveal itself, and then the next one. That's how it works. You move forward in faith, trusting that the path will unfold before you. And yes, you will make mistakes. Yes, you will stumble. Yes, you will face setbacks and obstacles and challenges. That's part of the process. That's not evidence that you're doing something wrong. That's evidence that you're doing something, period. The only people who never fail are the people who never try. When you're moving forward alone, when you don't have a cheering section, when you don't have people telling you you're doing great, you have to learn to be your own cheerleader. You have to learn to validate yourself. You have to learn to celebrate your small wins, to acknowledge your progress, to be gentle with yourself when things don't go as planned. This is where self-talk becomes critical. Most people have a vicious critic living inside their head, constantly telling them they're not good enough, smart enough, talented enough, worthy enough. And when you don't have external support, that internal critic can become overwhelming. It can paralyze you. It can stop you in your tracks. But you can change that voice. You can retrain your mind. You can choose what you focus on. Every time that negative voice shows up, you can thank it for trying to protect you and then redirect your attention to something more empowering. You can ask yourself better questions. Instead of, why can't I do this? Ask, how can I do this? Instead of, what's wrong with me? Ask, what's right with me? Instead of, why doesn't anyone support me? Ask, how can I support myself? Your mind is the most powerful tool you have. It can be your greatest asset or your greatest liability. When you learn to direct it, when you learn to use it intentionally, you become capable of things you never thought possible. You start seeing opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. You start seeing possibilities where before you only saw limitations. You start seeing yourself as powerful where before you saw yourself as powerless. Another crucial element of getting ahead alone is learning to be comfortable with solitude. We live in a world that glorifies busyness, that glorifies being constantly connected, that makes you feel like something is wrong if you're spending time alone. But solitude is where the magic happens. Solitude is where you connect with your true self. Solitude is where you hear the whispers of your intuition. Solitude is where you recharge and renew and remember who you really are. When you're comfortable being alone with yourself, when you actually enjoy your own company, you stop needing others to complete you. You stop looking for external entertainment to distract you from your internal experience. You start drawing strength from within rather than constantly seeking it from without. And paradoxically, when you stop needing people, that's when the right people start showing up in your life. Because here's what happens. When you're needy, when you're desperate for support and validation, you attract people who take advantage of that. You attract users and takers and people who drain your energy. But when you're whole within yourself, when you're secure in who you are, when you know your own worth, you attract a different caliber of person. You attract people who respect you, who value you, who want to support your growth rather than hold you back, but you can't get to that place by avoiding solitude. You have to be willing to spend time with yourself. You have to be willing to sit with your thoughts, to feel your feelings, to face your fears. You have to be willing to do the inner work that most people avoid their entire lives. And the inner work is not always comfortable. Sometimes it means confronting parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. Sometimes it means acknowledging beliefs that have been holding you back. Sometimes it means feeling emotions you've been suppressing for years. But on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. On the other side of that inner work is a version of you that's more authentic, more powerful, more aligned with your true purpose. Let me tell you about a principle that changes everything when you really understand it. You are not separate from the source of all creation. You are an extension of it. You are an expression of it. The same intelligence that orchestrates the entire universe is flowing through you right now. The same power that creates galaxies and atoms and everything in between is your power too. When you really get this, when you really feel it in your bones, you stop feeling alone because you realize you're never alone. You're always connected to something infinitely greater than yourself. You're always supported by a force that never judges you, never abandons you, never stops loving you. And when you align with that force, when you let it guide you, when you trust it completely, miracles start happening in your life. This is not about religion, by the way. You don't have to believe in any particular doctrine or follow any specific path. This is about recognizing the fundamental truth of your existence. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are consciousness having an adventure in form. And when you remember that, when you live from that awareness, everything shifts. Now, people will tell you that you need qualifications. They'll tell you that you need degrees, credentials, experience, connections. And while those things can be helpful, they're not what determines your success. What determines your success is your willingness to serve, your commitment to growth, your dedication to excellence, your ability to add value to other people's lives. You can start right where you are with what you have. You don't need permission from some institution or authority figure to begin. You don't need someone to anoint you or certify you or approve you. You just need to decide that you're ready to start, and then start. Begin before you feel ready. Begin before you feel qualified. Begin with fear and doubt and uncertainty, but begin anyway. The world needs what you have to offer. There are people out there right now who need your specific gifts, your unique perspective, your particular way of doing things. But they can't receive what you have to offer if you're still hiding, if you're still waiting, if you're still letting the lack of external support stop you. Think about this. Every person who has ever inspired you, every person you admire, every person whose work has touched your life in some meaningful way, they all had moments of doubt. They all had moments when they felt alone. They all had moments when they wondered if they were crazy for pursuing their vision. The only difference is they kept going anyway. They didn't let the doubt stop them. They didn't let the loneliness derail them. They didn't let the naysayers define their reality. And you can do the same thing. You have that same capacity. You have that same power. You have that same potential. The only question is, will you use it? Will you claim it? Will you step into it? Or will you let another year go by telling yourself the same old stories about why you can't, why it's too hard, why you need things to be different before you can begin? Here's something else I want you to understand. When you're getting ahead without external support, you're actually building something far more valuable than if everything was handed to you. You're building character. You're building resilience. You're building self-trust. You're building the kind of inner strength that no one can ever take away from you. People who have everything handed to them, who never have to struggle, who always have support and encouragement and resources, they often lack something crucial. They lack the grit that comes from overcoming obstacles. They lack the wisdom that comes from failure. They lack the self-confidence that comes from succeeding against the odds. When you do it the hard way, when you build something from nothing, when you achieve your goals despite the lack of support, you earn a kind of self-respect that can't be bought or given. You prove to yourself that you're capable. You prove to yourself that you're resourceful. You prove to yourself that you're stronger than you thought. And that proof, that evidence, becomes the foundation for even greater achievements. So don't resent the lack of support. Don't waste energy being bitter that people aren't there for you the way you wish they would be. Instead, see it as an opportunity. See it as a chance to develop capacities you might never develop otherwise. See it as a gift that's forcing you to dig deeper, to reach higher, to become more than you've ever been. When you change your perspective on your circumstances begin to change. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your situation and start seeing yourself as a student in the school of life, everything transforms. The same challenges that used to defeat you become opportunities for growth. The same setbacks that used to discourage you become lessons that make you wiser. The same loneliness that used to paralyze you becomes solitude that strengthens you. Let's talk about fear for a moment, because fear is the thing that stops most people from moving forward alone. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of looking foolish. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of discovering that maybe they're not as capable as they hoped, so they stay in their comfort zone. They stay in situations that feel safe, even if those situations are slowly killing their spirit. But here's what you need to know about fear. It's just a feeling. It's not a fact. It's not a prophecy. It's not evidence that something bad is going to happen. It's just your nervous system's way of saying, hey, this is new, this is unfamiliar, pay attention. And yes, sometimes fear is warning you about real danger. But most of the time, especially when you're pursuing your dreams, fear is just the growing pains of expansion. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you're going to feel fear. Every single time. That never goes away. The people you think of as fearless, they feel fear too. They've just learned not to let it stop them. They've learned to feel the fear and move forward anyway. They've learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in the presence of fear. So you don't need to wait until you're not afraid anymore. You'll be waiting forever. What you need to do is acknowledge the fear, thank it for trying to keep you safe, and then do the thing anyway. Take the action. Make the call. Send the email. Launch the project. Start the business. Write the book. Record the video. Whatever it is that's calling to you, do it afraid. And when you do, something amazing happens. The fear doesn't necessarily go away, but your relationship with it changes. You realize that you're bigger than your fear. You realize that you can function perfectly well even when you're scared. You realize that fear is just one small part of your experience, not the whole thing. And with each action you take, despite the fear, you build evidence that you're capable, that you're brave, that you can handle whatever comes your way. Now, let's address something important. What about when you actually do fail? What about when things don't work out the way you planned? What about when you try your best and still fall short? This is where so many people give up. They interpret failure as evidence that they're not meant to succeed, that they should have listened to the doubters, that they should just settle for a safer, smaller life. But failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Every successful person has a string of failures behind them. The difference is they didn't stop. They didn't let failure define them. They didn't make it mean something about their worth or their potential. They extracted the lesson, made the adjustment, and kept going. When you're alone in your pursuit, when you don't have a support system to help you process failure, you have to be extra careful about the story you tell yourself. You have to be vigilant about not letting one setback convince you that you're not capable. You have to keep your failures in perspective, seeing them as feedback rather than as final verdicts. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? What am I stronger or wiser or more skilled in because of this experience? When you approach failure with curiosity rather than judgment, it stops being something to fear and becomes something valuable. It becomes information. It becomes training. It becomes preparation for your eventual success. And here's something that might surprise you. Sometimes the lack of support is actually protecting you. Sometimes the people who aren't there for you would actually hold you back if they were involved. Sometimes their doubts would become your doubts. Sometimes their limitations would become your limitations. Sometimes their fear would dampen your enthusiasm, and their skepticism would undermine your faith. When you're free from those influences, when you're insulated from that negativity, you can maintain your vision, you can keep your energy high. You can stay focused on what's possible rather than getting dragged down into what's probable according to other people's limited perspectives. So the very thing that feels like a disadvantage might actually be your greatest advantage. This is why it's so important to be selective about who you listen to. Not everyone deserves access to your dreams. Not everyone has earned the right to comment on your vision. Just because someone has an opinion doesn't mean you need to receive it. Just because someone is related to you or has known you for a long time doesn't mean they understand where you're going or what you're capable of becoming. You have to protect your inner space. You have to guard your mind and your heart against negativity and doubt and fear-based thinking. This doesn't mean you ignore legitimate concerns or refuse to hear constructive feedback. It means you're discerning. It means you consider the source. It means you only let in voices that are aligned with your growth and your highest good. And when you can't find those voices externally, you cultivate that voice internally. You become your own mentor. You become your own coach. You become your own best friend. You learn to speak to yourself with kindness and encouragement and belief. You learn to be the person you wish someone else would be for you. This is one of the most powerful shifts you can make, from waiting for external validation to generating internal validation. From needing others to believe in you to believing in yourself so strongly that it doesn't matter what others think. From looking outside for permission to giving yourself permission. From seeking approval to seeking alignment with your authentic self. When you make this shift, you become unstoppable. Not because circumstances become easier, but because you're no longer dependent on circumstances. Not because people suddenly start supporting you, but because you no longer need their support to move forward. Not because obstacles disappear, but because you've developed the inner resources to overcome any obstacle. Let me share something with you about the nature of reality. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. What you see around you is a mirror of what's going on inside you. So if you're constantly focused on what's missing, if you're constantly telling yourself the story that you're alone and unsupported and that life is hard, that's exactly what you'll experience more of. But if you shift your focus, if you start looking for evidence that the universe is supporting you, you'll start seeing it everywhere. You'll notice synchronicities, you'll notice opportunities, you'll notice people and resources and ideas showing up right when you need them. Not because reality changed, but because you changed what you were looking for. This is why gratitude is so powerful. When you're grateful for what you have, when you appreciate the support that is available to you, even if it's not in the form you expected, you open yourself up to receive more. When you're grateful for your own strength, for your own resilience, for your own determination, you strengthen those qualities within yourself. Start each day by acknowledging what's going right. Start each day by recognizing your own capabilities. Start each day by connecting with that infinite source of power and wisdom within you. This practice alone will transform your experience. It will shift you from victim consciousness to creator consciousness. It will shift you from scarcity to abundance. It will shift you from limitation to possibility. And as you make this shift, as you step more fully into your power, something interesting happens. You stop being so concerned with whether people are there for you or not. You stop keeping score. You stop feeling resentful about the lack of support. Because you realize that your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have. You realize that being your own source of love and approval and encouragement is the greatest gift you can give yourself. This doesn't mean you become cold or isolated or disconnected from others. Actually, the opposite happens. When you're not coming from a place of neediness, when you're not constantly seeking validation, when you're secure in yourself, you become much more capable of healthy relationships. You become much more capable of giving and receiving in a balanced way. You become much more capable of connecting authentically. But those connections come as a bonus, not as a necessity. They enhance your life rather than define it. And that makes all the difference. That's the difference between dependency and interdependency. That's the difference between looking for someone to complete you and sharing yourself fully with another complete person. So, where do you go from here? How do you actually implement all of this? How do you start getting ahead when no one is there for you? You start by making a commitment to yourself. You commit that from this day forward, you're going to show up for yourself the way you've always wanted others to show up for you. You're going to believe in yourself the way you've wanted others to believe in you. You're going to support yourself the way you've wished others would support you. And then you take one action, just one. Whatever the next right step is for you, you take it. Maybe it's researching something you want to learn. Maybe it's making a phone call you've been avoiding. Maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off. Maybe it's just sitting in silence and reconnecting with yourself. Whatever it is, you take that step. And then tomorrow, you take another one. And then another one. Progress compounds. Small actions taken consistently over time create massive results. You don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to keep moving forward one step at a time, trusting that the path will reveal itself as you walk it. And on the days when it feels hard, when you feel discouraged, when you wonder if it's worth it, remember this: you are not doing this just for yourself. You're doing this for everyone whose life you're going to touch. You're doing this for everyone who's going to be inspired by your example. You're doing this for everyone who needs what only you can give. Your success matters. Your growth matters. Your willingness to keep going even when it's hard, even when you're alone, even when no one understands, that matters. Because every time someone breaks through their limitations, they make it easier for others to do the same. Every time someone achieves something they were told was impossible, they expand the realm of possibility for everyone. You are not separate from the whole. You are part of it. And when you rise, you lift others with you. When you break through your barriers, you weaken those same barriers for everyone else. When you refuse to give up on yourself, you give others permission to refuse to give up on themselves. This is the truth of it. You came here to shine. You came here to express the fullness of who you are. You came here to create, to contribute, to make a difference. And whether anyone else recognizes that or supports that or believes in that is completely irrelevant. What matters is that you recognize it. What matters is that you support it. What matters is that you believe in it. So stop waiting. Stop hoping. Stop wishing things were different. Accept where you are. Accept that you're alone in this right now. Accept that no one is coming to save you. And then let that acceptance become your liberation. Let it become your motivation. Let it become the very thing that propels you forward. Because when you truly accept that you're alone, when you truly own that reality, you also accept that you're free. Free to make your own choices. Free to follow your own path. Free to become whoever you want to become. No one is there to stop you. No one is there to hold you back. No one is there to tell you what you can or cannot do. The absence of support is actually the presence of freedom. The lack of someone else's belief in you is actually the space for your own belief to grow stronger. The silence of the crowd is actually the opportunity to hear your own inner voice more clearly. So use this time wisely. Use this solitude purposefully. Use this independence courageously. Build something that matters. Create something meaningful. Become someone you're proud of. Do it for yourself. Do it because it's who you are. Do it because you can't not do it. Then one day, you'll look back on this time and you'll see it differently. You'll see that being alone wasn't a curse but a blessing. You'll see that the lack of support wasn't abandonment but opportunity. You'll see that having to do it yourself wasn't a burden but a gift. Because that struggle, that difficulty, that loneliness, that's what forged you into the person you needed to become. That's what developed the strength and the wisdom and the character that made everything else possible. That's what gave you the self-confidence and the self-reliance and the self-trust that no external circumstance can ever shake. That's what taught you that you are enough, that you have what it takes, that you can handle whatever life throws at you. And when you get to that place, when you really know that in your bones, when you really live from that certainty, life becomes an adventure rather than a struggle. Challenges become interesting rather than overwhelming. Setbacks become temporary rather than defeating. Because you know who you are, you know what you're made of. You know that you can figure it out, no matter what it is. That's the gift of getting ahead alone. That's the treasure that's hidden in the difficulty. That's the gold that's buried in what looks like limitation. And that gift, that treasure, that gold, it's worth everything you have to go through to claim it. So keep going. Keep moving forward. Keep believing in yourself. Keep honoring your vision. Keep following your path, even when it's hard, even when you're alone. Even when you can't see how it's all going to work out, keep going anyway, because you are not alone, not really. You're connected to a power and an intelligence and a love that is infinite and eternal and always available to you. You're connected to your own higher self, your own inner wisdom, your own divine nature. And when you live from that connection, when you draw from that well, when you trust that source, you have everything you need. You are whole, you are complete, you are enough, right now, exactly as you are. You don't need anyone else to make you more. You don't need anything else to happen before you can start. You don't need conditions to be different before you can succeed. You have the power. You have the wisdom. You have the strength. It's all there inside you, waiting for you to claim it. So claim it today, right now, in this moment. Decide that you're done playing small. Decide that you're done waiting for permission. Decide that you're done letting the lack of support stop you. Decide that from this point forward, you're going to be the author of your own story, and it's going to be a story of courage and growth and triumph, because that's who you really are, not the small, limited, fearful person that circumstances sometimes convince you to be, but the bold, powerful, infinite being that you came here to express. And the world is waiting for you to step into that. The world is waiting for you to share your gifts. The world is waiting for you to fulfill your purpose. Don't keep the world waiting any longer. Don't keep yourself waiting any longer. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your opportunity. Take it, own it, run with it, and never, ever look back.